Okay, today's video is a review on diagnostics software and diagnostics tools. Now, I know I promised this video months ago, but obviously we had problems with the car. Clive has been on holiday, so it's been a bit delayed. I did try and do this video a couple of months back, but it didn't really work out. It's not an easy video to do. So I shall try my best to make it as clear as I can for you and cover it. Clive can't be with us today. He, being a mobile mechanic, he's on a call out, unfortunately. But I have got some screenshots of the Gyro Matrix software, so I will show you that and I'll explain through that with you. So that said, where to start? Well, obviously, I think the main problem that most of us face when it comes to diagnostic tools and diagnostic software is very few of them will read or fully read Porsche's ECUs. So that's where the first problem really starts. So there's two types of data that aftermarket software and diagnostic tools read. And that's the fault codes that obviously we're all familiar with and all tend to like because we see them as simple and easy. And there's the raw data that you can pick up. Now, most of the software will only read genetic fault codes, which aren't really a great deal of help. An example of that is my car developed a random misfire. I connected the diagnostics to it and I got a fault code for a random misfire. You already know that, so it's not really a great deal of help. However, not all is lost, because if you spend a little time, and it's not difficult, just getting to understand the raw data, then you can still check the most common sensors on the car using the live data, so not all is lost. Oh, that's a bit better. Foxy weather. So we've covered the problems we face with aftermarket diagnostic for Porsche and probably quite likely most other iconic brands. So the next question, and it might seem a bit of a silly question, is why do we actually need our own diagnostics? Why can't we just leave the diagnostics to when a garage has the car? Well, apart from the obvious, when we want to try and find if there's a problem ourselves, the other thing you need to bear in mind with diagnostics and fault codes is that the ECU can shut things down, and it can change from using a sensor to using its internal map to get information. So if you've got fault codes in the ECU that haven't been removed, it can affect the running of the car. And the other thing, of course, is if you're looking for a problem with the car, if you've got what they call historic fault codes in there, it can be misleading. So it could be the car has been repaired in the past, but the fault code hasn't been cleared. You go and look at your fault codes and assume that there's something wrong with the car. So it's really a case of, on a regular basis, we need to check for these codes and check for these problems and clear them. Usually the best time to do that is when the car is being serviced. Then you sort of, on a yearly basis, you're checking and getting rid of these codes. So that pretty much covers why. That covers the problems we face with aftermarket diagnostics and diagnostic tools, and it covers pretty much the reason we need them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the types of diagnostic tools that you get. So essentially there's two types of diagnostics, diagnostic tool and diagnostic software. And we're going to start off with the diagnostic tool, which you've seen me use a few times. Basically, you just plug it in, very simple menu to go through your codes. Now this particular tool, I will put a link to where you can get these. You can get this on eBay for around £10. Pay a lot more in a shop. Essentially, that's only ever shown one fault code on my car, and that is a random misfire. And it does show live data, but it only shows it as figures. So all you can do is watch the figures move around. It isn't a great deal of help, to be perfectly honest. So my personal opinion, not a great deal of use, to be honest. But you can read live data, and essentially, if you're getting live data and the live data that you're watching is within the parameters that it should be for the various sensors, at least you know the sensors are working and they are sending information to the ECU. That really is about the limit of that tool's ability. So not terrifically great for use on our cars. The camera's playing up. The second type of software, the second type of diagnostics is the laptop-based software diagnostics. Now, that usually comes with a cable and a copy of the software. Quite often you download the software. It gives you a link to go to and download the software. Now, there's huge amount of different types out there, from anything from around £20 up to whatever you pay. Indeed, that's the type of diagnostics that Gyro Matrix is. They send you the cable, then you download their software. They're Porsche specific, and their software will read literally everything on your Porsche. The downside, of course, is that the enthusiast version, which I believe gives you 3 cars, is somewhere in the region of £200 to £300, which is a lot of money for diagnostics software. And of course, the professional version is God knows how much money, absolutely shed loads of money. And of course, for guys like us, quite often it is just unrealistic to spend that sort of money. So obviously I can't test and review loads of them, but I picked what seemed to be quite a popular one, which was OBD Whiz. I went for that one, A, because it's popular. It was about £30, so it's reasonably priced. And they got a website, so you can go to the website and find out more information about their software. There are some, on a word of caution, there are some on eBay that even offer you the ability to remap the ECU. I would be very, very careful about going down that route, because that really is an area for professionals. Stick to read-only software where you can read the information, but you can't interfere with any of the settings for your own safety. So now you have the same issues with the laptop-based software as you have with the little diagnostics tool, which I've put away now. In the fact that generally it doesn't read much in the way of fault codes, but what it does do is it gives you the raw data in the form of a graph, which makes it much easier to read. So let's have a look at the OBD Wiz software. We'll just click on it to open it. That icon there. And initially the screen you get there, if you've got the lead plugged into your car with the ignition on, it will auto connect. But obviously at the moment I'm showing you the software at my desk, because the thing with software based diagnostics is, before you can really go and start doing diagnostic work, you need to learn your way around the software and understand the software a bit. And obviously, depending on what software you decide to buy, it's going to vary in how it operates. So for the moment we will cancel that, but in the car that would automatically connect. So if it doesn't automatically connect, you've got a reconnect button up the top here. So we've got the things it sort of, now I don't really understand this, so I've left this setting as standard, but you can change the way it reads all the information in the car. PIB setup, you can prioritize which things that it watches first. So for example here it's got the freeze frame, fuel system status, calculated load value. You can change their priorities. Your general settings, day, night, and so fuel setup. You can use it. I personally find this is probably a bit of a gimmick, really, but you can use this to kind of get some idea of how fuel efficient your car is. And then you've got info about the software and more information about it. So we'll go back to the main kind of startup window. Right, so on the menu down the left hand side you've got your diagnostics. Now this diagnostics has never yet shown a fault code on my car. So this is the problem you've got with a lot of aftermarket software. It simply doesn't show you anything bar genetic fault codes. So if you get any fault codes that are worth having, it doesn't show them. Also, if it's not showing the fault codes, it's not going to clear them. Okay, but you can clear fault codes on the Boxsters by disconnecting and reconnecting the battery. Now this is a nice little what's it here, which it hasn't opened. The software today is being cantankerous with me. Dashboard, we'll just go back to there. Why isn't it? Ah, sorry, my mistake. Yeah, monitoring tests. Now, a nice little test that this software does. If you go to oxygen sensors, when it's connected to the car, it's like a dummies test for someone that doesn't want to get involved with all the technical reading the live data. And basically you go to this, you go to oxygen sensors, to the monitor test oxygen sensors, and it basically just tests, it runs a test on your oxygen sensors, and it gives you a pass or fail at the end of it, as simple as that. So it just simply assesses your oxygen sensors and tells you whether they're working or not. So that is handy. So it makes it very easy for you to check your oxygen sensors on your car. Okay. Next one down is a dashboard. Now again, when the car's running, you've got a couple of keys at the bottom on the left hand side and right hand side. You can go through different dashboard setups. Again, I find this a little gimmicky, but here you've got your mass airflow sensor. You've got engine load, RPM, short-term fuel trims, long-term fuel trims. So it does give you kind of a quick look at what's going on there. Problem with this really, for me, is it's the same as the diagnostic tool we looked at earlier on. It shows you what's happening right now, and you can't build up a picture of what's going on in the long term. That's why I don't really like the screen. The most important screen in any of the software, laptop software based stuff, is your logs. Now at the moment we've got nothing configured in there. So this is your configuration screen. Basically on this screen you've got a list of all the items you can check. Now not all of them are available on the Boxster, but most of the common ones that you're going to want to check are, so for instance we've got O2 voltage, so that's your oxygen sensor voltage. Now bank 1, sensor 1. My car only has 2 sensors, 1 on each bank. And I know the later cars have 2 on each bank, and you have got the option here to pick both 2. So I'm going to click on sensor, oxygen sensor for bank 1, oxygen sensor for bank 2, sensor, so it's bank 2, sensor 1. Oops, next one down. That's it, let's unclick that one. So I've clicked the 2 oxygen sensors. So we close that, up comes your chart. At the top here, we've got O2 oxygen sensor bank 1, sensor 1, oxygen sensor voltage bank 2, sensor 1. So now what this will do, although you can't read fault codes, you can now actually see what the oxygen sensors are doing. So you can have a look on the internet for what they're supposed to be doing. But basically, you're looking for a nice even signal. I will plug this into the car in a minute and show you these actually live running. But you're looking basically for an up-down movement from the bottom of the graph to the top of the graph on a regular basis on both of them. And that tells you that your oxygen sensors are operating within their parameters. Now, this particular software will only give you 2 charts per sensors. So you've got 2 keys down here, 2 arrowed keys at the bottom, which are greyed out at the moment. So if I go to this pen, that brings back up the chart where I ticked the oxygen sensors. So what we'll do now is we'll go down and we'll look at mass airflow sensor. Okay, so we'll add the mass airflow sensor, but you'll notice on the screen we've still got oxygen sensor bank 1, oxygen sensor bank 2. But now the arrow down here has become live and it takes you to a second screen where you've got your mass airflow sensor. Note you just got one large chart here now. If you click on another item, then that will double this chart up, so you will get them 2 items on that chart. So that's worth remembering when you're using that. And of course you've got the arrow here to take you back. Now the other thing that you've got on here is worth noticing. You'll notice I've got this time window set at 400 seconds. You can slow down or speed up the reading, and you need it quite fast to get a reading that makes sense. If it's slowed right down, the movements on the graph are so slow they don't make any logical sense. So that you do need set at around 400 seconds. I don't know quite what that means, but you do need that set quite high. So now with this you've got engine coolant, you've got your short-term and long-term fuel trims. I will talk about fuel trims a bit later on as well. The relationship between fuel trims and oxygen sensors. So this is where a lot of people go. Watching your fuel trim doesn't really give you a lot of information. Watching your oxygen sensors, the only information it really gives you is that they're working. The relationship between the what the oxygen sensors are doing and what the fuel trims are doing, that gives you more information about what's going on. But what we're looking at for today, because I want to answer a question that Thomas asked the other day, is something that you can use to check that your sensors, your most basic common sensors, are working. So we've got a mass airflow sensor there that I've ticked, and we've got the other one that I tend to use, absolute throttle position. There we go. So we've got 4 items that we've clicked on here. So what you've got on the first page, you've got your 2 oxygen sensors. So you can test to see, you can look and see if your oxygen sensors are actually working or not. If you want to keep it really basic, you can see if they're working or not. And you've got that nice simple test that I showed you on the monitoring screen. Flip to the next page. You can see if your mass airflow sensor is working or not, and then you can go into the readings that it's given out. And your throttle position sensor you can test and read. Unfortunately, this software does not do the air control valve, so that is unfortunately out of it. So it's a bit complicated, but you can use it to actually look at your basic sensors and see what they're doing. And as I say, in a little while I'll put it in the car, I'll run the car so that you can see the readings you should be getting if your car is running properly. So if the readings don't match, you know you've got a problem with them sensors. If you've got no reading at all, then obviously you know the sensors failed completely. So that is a quick overview of the OBD Wiz software, and we will now take it out into the car and I'll show you it in the car live with these four sensors that I've just set up. I'll leave it as it is now, plug it into the car so that you can see these operating in the car. Okay, so we're in the car's running, as no doubt you can hear, and the car is almost up to full running temperature. We've got the software plugged in and open. As you can see, we're opened on the Diagnostics page, and it's saying there's no fault codes with the car. Right, the monitor thing that I was telling you about, there we go. We go to oxygen test. As you can see here, we've got the little reading data symbol. I don't know if you can see that on the monitor. And we have, believe it or not, we have one fail on there. What is that for? There. Maximum center voltage for test cycle calculated fail. And the same on the second one. Now, I know for a fact they're both brand new sensors, they're both Bosch sensors, and the car is running fine, so that one. But as you can see, all the other tests on the oxygen sensors are all passed perfectly. So we don't think there's any real problem there. And then we'll go on to the log, and as you can see, that's what you're looking for. We've got a little discrepancy just, where's the mouse gone? Just here, I'll point with my finger as well. There's a little discrepancy there. Just a little bit there, but that's generally the sort of signal that you're looking for on your oxygen sensors. The signal runs from bottom to top of chart, and they're sort of relatively evenly spaced out. So that is telling you that your oxygen sensors are working, and they're working properly. Okay, so if you get no signal on there, if you just get a straight line, you've got a problem with your oxygen sensors. If you're getting erratic lines, you've got a problem with your oxygen sensors. So, although with this software you can't read the fault codes, you can look at what your oxygen sensors are doing. Okay, so now we're on the chart. We've got the mass airflow at the bottom, and you've got your throttle position sensor. This is what gave it away to me last time, that there was a problem. So as I push the throttle down, you can see that picks up and drops back down. I'll try and hold half throttle for you. Bit more. Oops. It's not easy to do. There we go. And then you take your foot off, drops back down to the bottom. And what was happening, like we've got this little lump here, with not touching the throttle pedal, the throttle position sensor was still moving up and down, and that's how we sussed that out. So what I'll do, I'll just go back to the oxygen sensor screen, and then we'll go back indoors. Now just take a minute to get going, and there you can see them starting to build up. So okay, that shows you how to check on your sensors without being able to read fault codes. So that's shown you the OBD whiz in action in the car, reading the thing. And it shows you, although it's a bit involved, a bit complicated, it does show you how you can get round not having basic fault codes and looking at your actual readouts from your sensors to see if they're working and if they're working properly. One thing I will point out is when it was on the throttle position sensor and mass airflow sensor, the charts were different sizes. It doesn't normally do that. Usually the charts are equal sizes as they were with the oxygen sensors. I don't know whether that was a glitch in the software or not. It's not done that before. So the last piece of software to discuss obviously is the Gyro Matrix. Now the Gyro Matrix is essentially again a laptop based diagnostic system. You buy it in the same way. They send you the cable and then you download the software. The difference with the Gyro Matrix is it is Porsche based, so it will read everything. It will read all the fault codes, it will read all the sensors, it allows you to turn various items on and off, does all your security, your airbags, it does everything. But of course it does come at a price. I've just had a look and I haven't got the screenshots that I thought I had. I must have deleted them at some point or another, so I can't show you the screenshots. But I mean, if you go on, I'm sure there's some on YouTube that will show you them, and I'm sure if you go to their website, you can see the Gyro Matrix. So, now I don't want to drag this video out any longer than I need to, because some of you may find it boring, some of you may find it interesting, and it is essentially a review of software and how to get around the shortfalls of the cheaper diagnostics that are out there. But what I will point out that I noticed while we were in the car, and I'll just go on to a screenshot of that for you, is now the top chart shows you the throttle position sensor as we demonstrated in the car. The bottom chart is the mass airflow sensor. Now obviously as you rev the engine up, you would expect the mass airflow signal to mimic the throttle position sensor, because as you open the throttle, the air draws in, the engine draws in more air, and as you shut the throttle, the engine draws in less air. That's not particularly rocket science. But if you look at it, if you actually take a moment to look at the chart, the amount of throttle movement to the amount of movement in the signal on the mass airflow sensor is actually different. It's more erratic. For example, here we've got a very small movement in the throttle position sensor, but a large movement in the mass airflow sensor. And then if we come down here, now it may be over exaggerated because the charts have put themselves in different sizes, but if we come down here where the throttle position sensor has gone up nice and smoothly, the mass airflow sensor hasn't gone up. It's gone up quite erratically, and where the throttle pedal has dropped straight down, again it's quite erratic in the return. It's interesting, or it would be interesting to find out what's going on there. It's not affecting the car the way the car's running. The car is running perfectly, but it'd be interesting to know why that signal from the mass airflow sensor is so erratic. So maybe we'll do a video on that subject, showing you how to use the relationships between the various readings on the various sensors to understand what's going on, and also if it's causing the little erraticness that we're seeing in oxygen sensor 2 on the chart that we're looking at now. So yeah, if you'd like to see that video, or you'd like me to do that video, let me know in the comments box. Well, that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. Hope you found it interesting and helpful. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss out on all our future videos, and please click like and share. As always, I will see you in the next video, so bye for now.